WoundedWarriorProject.org.
Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It is a Tuesday edition of Sports Daily. Glad to be here with you, Jacob Albracht, alongside Tommy Castor. Jad Chambers producing for us back in the studio. The KFH hotline is open for you. That's at 869-1240. We'll take your calls today as we get through some of the other big storylines happening in the sports world lately. We talked a lot about the NCAA tournament this week. Programming note, we will have Kevin Saul and Paul Mills joining the program, not on the bi-weekly regular Wednesday visit, but that's coming up Friday, so that'll be fascinating. Shocker fans, get ready for that as we will go through the NIL, latest on the roster, get everybody all caught up there. Looking forward to that conversation. But it's open. Phone lines. Go through the NIL, latest on the roster, get everybody all caught up there. Looking forward to that conversation. Get to some. But it's open. Phone lines. Go through the NIL, latest on the roster, get everybody all caught up there. Looking forward to that conversation. Get to some. Get into that. But it's open. Phone lines. Go through the NIL, latest on the roster, get everybody all caught up there. Looking forward to that conversation. Starting just a couple. But it's open. Phone lines. Go through the NIL, latest on the roster, get everybody all caught up there. Tommy, how are you?
Man, I'm good. I stepped outside this morning to come to
but it's
to
open.
work. It's a lot colder than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I knew it was going to be chilly, but it's one of those, like, I stepped outside this morning to come to work or warm weather. It's a lot colder than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I knew all of a sudden you get slapped in the face, but it's one of those walk outside. I think it's like a temporary warm weather. It's a lot colder maybe tomorrow. I mean, I knew it. When we back to like regular spring time, it was wild. Hearing about like out in West Virginia this morning, tornadoes one day and then snow the next day. And hey, that's Kansas for you this time of year. Hearing about like out in West Virginia tomorrow.
It's going to be. It's going to be. It is going to be this time of year. Weather this weekend, which is tomorrow, it's going to be sort of surviving this March. I think you had a birthday here in the last week. I've got one coming up this weekend. We're used to it. Sometimes you get good weather on birthday, sometimes it's miserable. You had a birthday here still last week as well, which makes for a good weekend. Looks like the weather will be pretty nice for that. So hopefully everybody's got some Easter egg hunts. You had a birthday here, whatever it is that we have planned for the big holiday weekend. We hopefully have a great Tommy, I don't even know where to start today. I suppose it's Shohei Ohtani. And we talked about this yesterday. This is one of the more confusing stories. Tommy, I don't even know where to start today. I suppose it's Shohei, potential implications. And we talked about this yesterday. This is just how many different Tommy, I don't even know where to start today. I suppose it's Shohei, potential implications of it. And Shohei, how many different I don't even know where to start today. I suppose it's Shohei, potential implications of it. I suppose he trusted has done this. He says, quote, we had the team meeting in the clubhouse. During the team meeting, he was speaking English, and I didn't have a translator at my side. But we had the team meeting in the clubhouse. During the team meeting, he was speaking English, and I didn't have a translator at my side. But we had the team meeting in the clubhouse. During the team meeting, he was speaking English, and I didn't have a translator at my side. But we had the team meeting. long time says these things. You're like, okay, well, yeah, he's obviously working in these places, whatever. So I don't have any blame for the long
Dodgers,
time says
I
these
guess
things.
it
You're
would
like,
be,
okay,
or
well,
would it
yeah,
be
he's
he's
obviously
Angels
working
for
in
not
these places,
vetting
whatever.
this guy and
So I don't have any blame for the long time
Dodgers,
says
I
these
guess
things.
it
You're
would
like,
be,
okay,
or
well,
would
yeah,
it be
he's
Angels
obviously
for
working in
not
these places,
vetting
whatever.
this guy and
So I don't have any blame for the long time
Dodgers,
says
I
these
guess
things.
it
You're
would
like,
be.
account. So that part of it I actually do have some sympathy to. But how did this guy get his banking information in the first place? I don't know. Account. So that part of it I actually
That was as definitive
have
as
some
Shohei
sympathy
Ohtani could have
to.
been yesterday.
But how did this guy
Well,
get his
and,
banking
on top of it,
information
we're
in the first
talking
place? I don't
about
know. Account.
what,
So that
$4
part of it I
million?
actually
that was
Doing
as
some
definitive
crazy
as Shohei.
lot of money, right? And I know that $4 million to Shohei Ohtani is not like $4 million to you and I, but still, number one, a lot of money. If you don't know, and I know he's got access to your bank to Shohei Ohtani, and number two, you don't like $4 million $4 million is but still, number one, a lot of money. If you don't know, and I know he's got access to your bank to show what's going on. Number two, you don't like $4 million. And the thing about it, I know, but still, number one, a lot of money. You don't know, and I know he's got access to they're compulsive gamblers. You talk about compulsive liars. They're compulsive gamblers. Michael Jordan is a compulsive gambler. Phil Mickelson is a compulsive gambler. You talk about compulsive liars. They're compulsive gamblers. Well documented. Michael Jordan, is a compulsive gambler. Betting on their sports is a compulsive gambler. You talk about compulsive liars. They're compulsive gamblers. But Phil Mickelson was part of a Federal compulsive gambler. And there was Phil Mickelson that is a compulsive gambler. You talk about compulsive liars. And Mickelson testified against him at the federal trial. Like these things have happened with professional athletes. And, so I think that's really where it gets tricky with the Shohei Ohtani situation is that, if Ohtani is defiantly and definitively saying that he is not involved in Shohei Ohtani situation, if it turns out that he is, then you've got defamation issues with the interpreter, all those different things. I would imagine that his representation probably feels comfortable enough for him to defiantly come out and say he's not a part of this. But I would imagine that either he's involved or he's the biggest idiot. Probably letting this guy have an unfettered access to his bank account, and he has no idea. But $4 million here, he's involved. He's the biggest idiot. Probably letting this guy have an unfettered access to his bank account, and he has no idea. But $4 million here, he's involved. He's the biggest idiot. Probably letting this guy have an unfettered access to his bank account, and he has no idea. But $4 million here, he's involved.
The current gambling climate didn't exist, so they had to get their fix for long. If Shohei's got that big a where he can't, if the current gambling climate in the city or whatever it is, it's their fix for long. If Shohei's got that big a where he can't, whatever happens, whatever the ultimate outcome of this is, it's going to be Shohei, right? Like no matter whatever happens, whatever the Shohei. Anything he says, right? He probably doesn't want to go to jail, so he's trying to figure this out. So that makes it hard too. Like we're finding anything very quickly he says, this guy lies about, right? He probably doesn't want to go to jail, and so he's trying to figure this out. He says so that makes it hard too. Like we're finding anything very quickly he says, this guy lies about, right? He probably doesn't want to go to jail, and so he's trying to figure this out. So that makes it hard too. Like we're finding anything very quickly this guy lies about, right? He probably doesn't want to go to jail, and so he's trying to figure this out. Potentially involved that's come out and saying, yeah, Shohei was making the bets. I think that's all just like social media speculation, which is not the place to be during this time, unless you're just trying to like have silly fun with everything. But like,
well, yeah. And then you get the news yesterday. I don't know if you followed this, that there was an NBA player that is under investigation now for weird prop betting around his name. Like around, and it happened to be on games when he left a game early because he was injured or sick or something like that. And on those specific games, there was increased betting activity, abnormal betting activity around his minutes played, his prop bets, things like that, that cashed out, that ended up being big winners for the people that were placing bets on those things. So you've got that going on too, kind of around the same time. And it does raise the question. I've seen it on social media. We're now in a world where professional sports are pretty cozy with sports wagering, and it's become big business and all of that. Is this something that is a byproduct of all of that? Or will this sort of thing continue? When we see that sort of thing going on,
it's fascinating to me when you can't separate it, and I understand it. I understand how that happens. I understand it can be addictive. I understand it can be a disease, all of those things. But man, Shohei Ohtani is going to be the wealthiest athlete in the world. Like, he's considered by many the greatest baseball player that has ever played. What he represents to an entire nation, like all of these things, that seems like a stretch to me.
Yeah.
Like that seems like that we would have never heard anything about this ever before in this world where people know everything about everything. That seems like a stretch. Maybe I'm being naive, but again, now with him saying that and saying he didn't know anything about this until right there in that moment, now I'm like, well, that's also a stretch. So is he saying that now because he's being advised to say that now? Like, I don't think lawyers would tell you to lie.
Right. And I just think that it's one of those, it's something where, moving forward, when you've got all this money and you are probably the most popular professional athlete on the planet, you got to have better people surrounding you if that ends up being what actually happened. And in today's modern world, I can check my bank account in 2 seconds on my phone. I can pull up the app and I'll know. And I know that Shohei Ohtani is a professional athlete and all of that.
If you had bank accounts when you have that much money,
I get it.
So simple.
I get it. Right? But it's not
do you
like
think you're checking it if you're worth $50 million.
You should be. When you're talking about, like, it's one thing if you have $50 million and you don't know where $100 went. You're not probably checking on that. But if you've got $50 million and 4 of it is gone, then you probably better know that.
I just mean actively checking it. Like, do you think like the rest of us, when he gets paid every other Friday, he's like, let me make sure that went through, like, and I can cover my.
Can I pay my bills?
He is.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think he's in that world. I also don't, you never know when you get that much money, you're not putting it all in one place. Only $250,000 is ever insured.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? And the other thing I need to know is how long, and this may be out there and I may have missed it because I was a little detached, on vacation. How long did the betting take place? Do we know that yet? Because that's the part too. Like, if this was all at once, but if this was over a very long period of time. And here's the other thing. How bad at betting do you have to be, Tommy, to rack up $4.5 million
right
in the hole?
Yeah.
I don't know. You'd have to even double it down a lot of times to get that high.
It looks like it was over the course of several months last year, back in 2023.
Several months. So that's a relatively small time frame.
4.5 million in wire transfers that had Ohtani's name on it. Those are things that, there should probably be better checks and balances if Ohtani didn't know about it.
He also doesn't strike me as that stupid to make wire transfers with his name on it. Like, what are we doing here?
And
that's the other. Yeah.
And I know I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago, and it's separate from the Ohtani situation. This Jonte Porter situation with the Raptors is insane also. Like, it does shed light on, again, the cozy relationship that sports wagering has with professional sports now, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's an uneasy relationship because both sides are leaning into it, but there are certainly ramifications, that happen from time to time. This Jonte Porter thing is one of them. The Shohei Ohtani thing is not, but it does, again, put a spotlight on, sports wagering and athletes.
Doesn't it also, it makes me think, like, I'm pretty amazed at how they've got such a good pulse on this. Like, the Jamison Williams happened to be, like, wasn't he just was making bets in the locker room, not on any football or anything else. Right. He just was on his phone while he was sitting there. Like that, like the fact that they're just like, they have the geo-targeting and all that.
Yeah, to me, it shows that, there's a cozy relationship, but there are guardrails in place. And these guardrails 100%. Are working, obviously, because it's catching
that's what I'm saying.
The people who are offending.
I wonder if they'd catch me betting $5 on 9-leg parlays.
You should automatically be banned if you do
that. We'll be right back. Your thoughts on the Shohei situation, 869-1240. Let us know. Mornings here at KFH, always fueled by Prairie Fire Coffee. Appreciate that on this cold day. It's hitting extra hard, warming us up. We always thank them for that coffee. We'll be back. More Sports Daily right after this.
A lot of things to pick up on the show today. Welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. We've been talking a little of the Shohei situation, some of these NFL rule changes certainly on our minds today. Deion Sanders and his thoughts about trying to choose where kids are drafted to some degree. We'll get into all of this stuff throughout the day today. Let's go to the KFH hotline to David wants to chime in on the Shohei situation. David, welcome into Sports Daily. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine. Good morning, gentlemen. Yeah, I've been thinking about this. Even yesterday, I was thinking about it. And I'll tell you, he had to know. Ohtani had to know that he's gambling. You don't give your interpreter your bank account. Maybe your accountant, maybe your lawyer. You don't give your interpreter your bank account. You just don't let them have free will at that. He's involved. There's no doubt about it. But
yeah, I mean, the only thing is if it was stolen, right? Like, what did this guy steal his bank account information?
Right. Maybe he had access to his number. Yeah, I could see that. But my goodness, anybody that does anything with their account has to keep track of that. He had to have known something was going on. He should have cut it off right away. if he wasn't involved. He had to have known this before then. So I think he's involved. But hey, I got a question for you guys. I know gambling's legal in about now 40 out of 50 states, and I can understand why. Our legislators want more IRS agents. I mean, hell, they want like 50,000 more agents. And I really do believe it's because of this gambling now in states. They're not going after the rich. They're going after the people betting because, you're not going to report your income on this. And I think we do need agents to keep this in line. But like I know, like when you go to Vegas and bet, you've got to, you don't, they don't ask your ID or not. You just go up there and bet. But down there at FanDuel, I've never bet down there at FanDuel down there at the Kansas Star. Do you have to show your card or do you have to show an ID when you bet so they can track your betting? I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, David, I don't know exactly. I don't think you have to have any kind of like player's card or anything. I think that you can, you can bet. I'm sure that they verify age, but beyond that, I mean, I'm not sure that there's really, much else there other than that.
They'll get it
So
if you win big.
Like
it's kind of like it's Vegas, I as far as I know, and you'd have to call down there. But in general terms, like in Vegas, yeah, you don't.
Yeah, you just walk up there, right? And
you walk up, you bet, but
$500, and
But David, if you win a jackpot, there will be a gentleman there to collect your information.
Right. Exactly.
It's
you
not.
You have to show an ID on a big win.
Right.
Yes, I know that.
Well, not just that, you'll have to fill out a tax form while you're standing there.
Exactly.
And so now, like with these sites, at least on the on the phone and the websites and everything, they just have to verify that you're allowed to do that, and through that, they're getting all your information. I quite frankly don't know that process. I had a good year this year. I'm about to find out. Right? Like I don't know how that works, but when the Rangers won the World Series, a part of my brain is like, well, okay, like let's shave off 20% of that going right to Uncle Sam there. So I don't know, but I don't know how it's going to. I don't know because they obviously keep track of it. And then, one site keeps track of what you do, but they don't keep track from one site to the other site. And then is it like one large collection? Do you owe each one? All I know is whatever they give the IRS is what I'm bound to. So I honestly, David, I don't know. It's a great question. It's something as also a news reporter, I've thought about like sending down to our people, like, how does this process work? It's so fresh and so new that I think we're all just sort of waiting to see how it happens. I don't know. It's not easy. If you go to the sites right now and try to get tax forms, I can tell you it's not easy. I've tried because I don't know what to do yet. But
I do know, like, well, if you went out to the horse or dog track and you won money and you had to sign a ticket, you could always collect unwinning tickets and write those off. Write off your
losses are losses are as big because it's income. I agree. Not to get too much into the weeds.
To even it out, to write that off. But I was just wondering.
I need you to calculate those losses too when we're talking about gambling. Let's be real here. Those certainly need to factor in here. I don't know, David. That's a good question out at the start. You'd have to ask. I'm sure you can call down and find out.
And what
we appreciate
IRS agents. I think they're coming after us. All right.
I hope.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Hey, the other thing, Jacob, that I really think is going to be interesting with the Shohei situation, I think we have to kind of sit back and wait and see if there are federal charges against this interpreter, because
100%.
And I think that federal charges on the interpreter will tell us a lot about Shohei Ohtani's involvement. It may not be the end all be all, but if there are federal charges like fraud charges, wire fraud charges on this interpreter, then that would mean that federal investigators believe that the interpreter stole the bank account information from Shohei Ohtani, and Ohtani had no knowledge of that. If there are not wire fraud charges, then that would lead me to believe that maybe Shohei Ohtani knew or authorized them or helped gamble, or not help gamble, but helped cover the gambling debts from the interpreter. So, I mean, it's probably not 100% either way, but I think that whether or not there are charges on this interpreter will tell us a lot about the level of involvement that Shohei Ohtani has.
And that's to some degree, because remember, this is apples and oranges, but Kansas was involved with the federal investigation on the Adidas deal, Kansas was labeled by the federal investigators as a victim of fraud.
Right.
However, that was irrelevant into the ultimate punishment of Kansas, right? At the end of it all. So yes, that will help in Shohei Ohtani potentially going to jail, but I don't know that it will matter in Major League Baseball's investigation ultimately. There are two different investigations happening. What's legal to the FBI and what's legal to Major League Baseball are two very different things, right? So we'll just have to see. I don't know if we'll get the details we need as soon as the FBI is done with this bookmaker, or if we have to wait until we get some sort of investigative report. Are we going to get the information there? And how much can Major League Baseball lean into whatever is being done at that level right now? My guess is, like everybody in the world, it may not even impact this season. Like, this is going to take a minute. If they're investigating a bookmaker and they've got to try to pull and gather all these records, and Major League Baseball may be bound to just waiting for that part to play out before they can do anything. I think Major League Baseball can probably just ask this interpreter some questions, ask Shohei Ohtani some questions, ask the teams some questions, and then hang tight. And because of that, I don't think this is really going to impact much of this season, at least unless they're going to move at lightning pace for some reason that they never have before. And I don't know how long they've been investigating this guy, so maybe it's not that long, but I would be pretty surprised if this impacts this season, if not half this season. Just these things take forever, and Shohei ain't going to say a word as far as a reporter question. Neither are anybody. Major League Baseball's not going to. The Dodgers aren't going to. Nobody that's potentially involved in the investigation, they're not going to say anything while the investigation's happening. That's just the world. You don't do that. So I don't know. I do think the statement yesterday is interesting because he didn't have to say that either. To come out and flatly deny it. Again, I don't think his lawyers are going to tell him, get up there and lie. Right. I don't think that they would do that. I mean, maybe they would. Probably not going to be very successful if you tell somebody, get up there, openly lie. You did this, but let's just lie about it. I don't know. Some very powerful people historically in the world have said just lie so often until people start to believe it is the truth. So who knows? Maybe that's the play too. It's again, there's no more outcome for me that is not just unbelievable. The only outcome that was believable to me is that he was trying to bail out his buddy. That's it. That was the only thing for me that was ever in the tank that could have been remotely believable. But now that he says he didn't know about it at all, ever until the end, now I'm back to whatever happens here, I won't totally and fully believe it because it will seem such a stretch any direction.
It's funny because, and we talked about it in the first segment about how it went from originally the interpreter saying that Shohei was helping him pay off his debts to then all of a sudden Shohei didn't know. If I'm Shohei Ohtani, maybe I didn't know, but I would almost rather the interpreter tell the story that I was helping him out, because I feel like I end up looking stupid if I give this interpreter, I don't know that he has access to my bank account information and all of that.
Right.
I would almost rather go with the story of, just tell everybody, tell the world that I was helping you out because I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look like I don't manage my money well, or I don't stay on top of my finances. And you're done. You're fired. I'm not helping you again, but we can roll with this story that I was helping you out. I don't know.
But I wouldn't.
The way that
I
story
even
changed
care if everybody thought I was an idiot.
But it's actually, I think it's worse for Shohei as opposed to being quote unquote a good friend, and helping a guy down on his luck, pay off his debts and that sort of thing. It makes you look like a loyal friend. And don't do it again. Right. But I'm going to help you get out from underneath, an illegal bookmaker who we don't know much about. But, I picture what I think in my mind an illegal bookmaker is like. Probably not somebody that you want to owe $4.5 million to. Probably somebody that is in the underworld and that you could get into a lot of trouble being associated with. So I would almost rather have that story be out there. And then it changed very quickly from that to Shohei had no idea. I'm stealing money from him, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, it just makes Shohei look like an idiot.
I would not care one lick if I looked like an idiot when there's so much on the line, because who cares? I would. So I'm with you. Like if I were if this was like, we're caught, what's our best play here? The best play is totally, I'm bailing you out. Now, whether you can get pressed by, if the Feds are shooting higher, like if they want to, there is one, we haven't talked about this scenario. If they want to go like try to take down Shohei, like if he's way guilty and the Feds want to do that, that would be one reason this interpreter might be changing his story 100 times, is because they're putting the pressure on him. But I don't think that's the case. Again, we're just guessing at this. We're just guessing at this. In the meantime, I think Shohei Ohtani will be playing for a little while, because I don't think anything's going to move fast here. 869-1240. A lot of other little stories to get to. NFL rule changes. I think people will be hot on that. We'll probably wait till the top of the next hour for that. Let's come back. We'll quickly get you what Dion had to say about, his son and Hunter and some of his talented players in the NFL draft. We'll do that next on Sports Daily.
Okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right. A couple minutes here in this final segment, then we'll get to these NFL rule changes. Deion Sanders, Tommy, says that he would pull an Eli for his kid, Shedeur Sanders, who's going to be, we think, one of the top quarterbacks next year, and Hunter, his two-way superstar, just trying to dictate where they can go, more about where they don't go, certain organizations, cold weather. I love Deion Sanders. This is a stretch. If Shedeur Sanders is the number one pick, like if he's the top quarterback, I don't think Deion's going to say a word about him being the number one overall pick.
First off, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he's going to be the number one overall pick. I know.
No, I don't. But if he's a top quarterback, which is possible.
But will he be? I mean, I haven't looked at what that quarterback draft class looks like next season, but he may be one of the top quarterbacks. I don't know if he's going to be the top quarterback. And then I think it's even more of a stretch to think that he's going to be the number one overall pick. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't think I am.
I think he's in the mix to be the top guy. Let me look at just real quick a couple of things. It's either I've seen 3 different places now have him or Carson Beck of Georgia. And I'm going to tell you, based on what I've seen last year, I'm taking Shedeur over Carson Beck. Just personal opinion, but that's way too early to say. He's going to be in the mix to be a very high first round pick. You know what I mean? And maybe it's not first overall pick, but either way, like let's say it's the 3rd pick and it's who's going to suck next year in a cold weather city. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Cleveland. Like if Cleveland starts over, that's a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like whatever. Just a team that's not expected to be very good that happens to play in cold. Well, okay, the Patriots or the Jets decide to start over after a year with Aaron Rodgers, whatever. You think Deion's going to say, "No, we don't want you to go in the top 5, son." Like I think that day's done.
I'm looking at different like way too early draft boards, and I'm not seeing Shedeur Sanders at all on here. I mean, I'm seeing like the top quarterbacks in the class being somewhere down in the lower first round area. And I know this is just like a handful of like
never
early
gonna
guesses,
happen.
But you've got like,
you think we're going to have a
Ewers
draft
there,
where
Connor
2
Weigman from Texas A&M,
fall.
Carson Beck, down in the 2nd round. I don't see Shedeur Sanders on here at all.
Tom,
I do see Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is up there in the first round. Okay, I found Shedeur.
Well,
77 overall. So we're talking like in the 3rd round, early 3rd round in some of these projections already. In the 2025 NFL draft.
I mean, so it's clearly that we're missing the point here to some degree. I don't know where he's going. I don't know where he's going to go. But I know he's considered one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. Are you taking him? I'd ask you this: are you taking him or are you taking Quinn Ewers? If Quinn Ewers is the guy, because I think that's close.
I think that Quinn Ewers has the potential to take a big step forward next season. I mean, I really do. And I think there's a reason why, the other quarterbacks on that roster have started to go elsewhere, because they know Ewers is the guy this coming season. And I don't know. I mean, I think that obviously what Shedeur Sanders has going for him, and it's not a knock on Sanders because I do think he's a good quarterback, but what he's got going for him is he's got his own personal hype man in his father. And so you're going to always get the headlines. You're always going to be top of mind. It doesn't mean that you're the best. It doesn't mean that you're the most talented, but you do have a constant form of attention around you. So does Travis Hunter. That's part of the appeal for playing for Deion at Colorado or playing for Deion anywhere is that you know that you are always going to get the headlines. Does it mean you're the best though? Not necessarily.
Just to Walter Football and Sportskeeda, the first 2 I could find that are doing mocks both have Shedeur number 1 overall. So I don't know where he lands. I just know he's going to be in the conversation as a top pick. So let's just hypothesize that he's in a situation where he's there and Deion steps in and says, "No, I don't want you to go play in that city." Boy, I think that is so unlikely to happen.
It's happened before. It happened with John Elway.
I know it has.
It was John Elway's father.
Eli Elway.
I know that we talk about Eli, and I'm sure that Archie Manning was involved in that, but it happened like really publicly with John Elway and his father. Flat out said, we're not doing that.
Totally could happen with Shedeur. I mean, Deion's saying it's going to happen, so I believe that. It's not going to happen with Travis Hunter, though. Travis Hunter, Deion ain't his dad, right? There's a difference between being a coach and a dad. I love Deion, but I don't love this. Like, I don't know. But there is a part of me that gets it, right? Like, there are organizations that historically fumble this, or, if Shedeur's already got a lot of money through his college endorsements, like, do you want to go put him with a bad ownership group, a bad coach, and a bad offensive line? Maybe not. I mean, you'd love to go be in the spot Caleb Williams is in right now. That's cold weather city. It'll be interesting. Now I got to think more about, is Shedeur going to be the number 1 overall pick? I really think he could be. I think he's really good. Anyway, that was a rabbit hole, but that headline was out there. Let's get into these rule changes, because the number one thing people asked me about yesterday, the water cooler talk, was about this hip drop tackle. Now we have a kickoff change as well. We'll take you through the latest there with the NFL when we return. It's Albracht and Castor at Sports Daily on a Tuesday. We'll be right back.
NFL Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most... Now, from Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. This is Sports Daily with Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor.
Shocker baseball broadcast available live for free here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. Tune into KFH for WSU baseball at 5:45 tonight against Oklahoma State, or you can listen to it on the Odyssey app. Just search for KFH. Glad to be back with you here, everybody. Hour number 2. Another quick programming note: Wichita State softball against Oklahoma postponed a couple of weeks. Bummer, but that's all right. At least we still have the game. But yeah, baseball against Oklahoma State. That should be pretty fun tonight. You heard the Brian Green show here on KFH yesterday, last night. So moving and shaking into the spring season now, as all 3 of our Division I teams are out on the men's side. On the women's side, you try to make it through. Kansas State losing on the women's side was a bummer. The KU women losing last night. So we're done in the Division I NCAA tournaments. All there. Now we move on to the spring. You heard Ted there talk about the junior colleges in action. Good luck to all of them as they make their way through their tournaments. Good day for the men yesterday in Hutch. The women's junior colleges team still alive, still going. They'll play today.
You ever been up there, by the way? You ever been to the junior college national championship in Hutch? It's so much fun.
Love it. That arena is awesome. I watched Samaje Haynes-Jones play there. When he was at Hutch. It's such a cool thing. If you love basketball, you should go up. I mean, it is basketball all dang day, and it's good players too, like players that are going to go do something. So it's cool. It's great up there. It's really, really cool environment. Would invite everybody to go up there. All right, Tommy. So the big water cooler thing yesterday was the drop hip tackle. And we'll talk about that. And then we get the kickoff news today. Let's start with the drop hip. We mentioned it yesterday, right at the end of the show. Here comes, and you can queue up, then you might as well put flags on them and play flag football. Like clockwork, right? Every time there's a rule change, a safety rule change, that's where we go. I get it. I totally get it. But I'm going to tell you this, and I said this yesterday, and I fully believe it. We will all be right there on Sundays. We will watch the NFL. And the ratings will go up, not down. Nobody's going to stop watching football because of the drop hip tackle. Nobody has stopped watching football because of the ridiculous roughing the passer calls. Nobody has stopped watching football because the refs can't seem to get it right. Ratings keep going up. Boom, there you go. The biggest threat to the NFL is injury. Always is, has been, will be. You do not want your game's star players out. And I said this to somebody yesterday. Would I rather see, like, what would make me not watch a game more? 2 scrub quarterbacks because starters are hurt? A game featuring, let's think of an example last year. Zach Wilson and, I don't know, the backup for the Vikings, whatever you want to say, or a game where a big play in the second half was impacted by a flag on a drop hip tackle rule. Which one of those 2 things is going to keep you from watching an NFL game?
Not having the stars play, 100%.
Not 100%. Even close.
But here's my issue with all of it, and I get what you're saying. The problem is, people want to know why in the world of not just football, but in sports in general, why there's such a hard time finding referees or umpires. And a lot of it, I know it has to do in some capacity in youth sports with the way they're treated and that sort of thing. But a lot of it is it's become impossible to legislate all the rules in anything. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be these safety mechanisms in place to protect players from injury and that sort of thing. But what has ended up happening now in the NFL, and it continues, is that you've got subjective opinions being made by referees when, it's really difficult it's going to be a judgment call based on what the referee thinks. It's that way in college basketball, to an extent in baseball. Like in basketball, referees are judging the level of contact to call fouls, and that's been the way it's been for a long time. It's kind of the same thing now in football. You're not just figuring out, if you're reviewing a play where the spot of the ball is, that's more objective, but you're talking about the mechanisms in which a player is tackling, where they're tackling, what they're doing, if they're flipping the player around, if they're dragging him down to the ground, what that looks like. Are they hitting him in the head? Are they taking out their legs? What are they doing? And it makes it that much more difficult to be able to actually legislate these bang plays. So I'm not saying that it's the wrong thing to do to prevent injury from players. What I'm saying is that it's almost become an impossible task for referees to be able to get it right.
But also yesterday, we get the news that on some of those calls, like the eye in the sky is going to be able to quickly buzz in and be like, that's the wrong call. So that is a nice compliment to another rule like that, don't you think? Like we get that news yesterday too, and it sort of went under the radar because of the drop hip thing, but we are going to get some assistance electronically to these referees, which is obviously the right thing to do. There is no reason in the world when there is a missed call on some of this stuff, right? And some of it's somewhat opinion, but a lot of it's not. To be in a booth and for somebody to quickly have all the camera angles that we see on the TV broadcast that the on-the-field refs don't get access to, for somebody to buzz in and be like, that's not roughing the passer, we need to pull that flag. You could do that in less than 20 seconds. And so, okay, yep, never mind, we're picking that one up, missed that call, on with our lives. That's coming, I think. And I think that's the answer to this. But the reality is, like, does anybody sit here now and say, oh, horse collar tackle, let's put flags on them?
No, right? I don't think so. No.
The drop hip is far more dangerous than the horse collar, has caused far more injuries. It is the most injury-prone play in football.
But don't you think that there's, some kind of reactionary overcorrection that usually happens? Like, of course, this was all precipitated by the Mark Andrews injury last season with the Ravens. And so now you've got the NFL
Hill injury
feeling like they've got to react to this, and now they've got to legislate it. And I think that what ends up happening, I mean, think about and I brought this up on Friday with Paul on the show, and we were talking about it in the terms of reviewing calls and challenging calls in college basketball. But you remember when the NFL attempted to allow coaches and teams to challenge pass interference, and how big of a disaster that was?
Yep.
Because it was a subjective call. You were talking about a level of contact, and it didn't matter which decision the referees were making. There was a large contingent that thought it was the wrong one, right? And so this is kind of the same thing. I know it's not a challenge, but this is kind of the same thing where I guarantee you, yeah, sure, you are working at trying to prevent player injuries and take care of the players and all of this. But keep in mind, when this is called on the field, or if it is not called, now you've got it into the top of mind awareness of people watching at home. And there will always be a contingent of people that think that they got it wrong one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I worry about, it slows the game down. You've got to review all of this. You're never going to get it right because half of the people think that you made the right call. Half of the people think you made the wrong call, regardless of which direction, whether it's a non-call or not. So I think that all you're doing now is opening the door up for more scrutiny. And keep in mind, the NFLPA did not want this.
I know.
The Players Association, the ones that are actually getting injured because of this, did not want this to happen.
This was a player safety issue because it's a bottom line issue for the league, right? I know that, and it matters that the players, and that makes this one really interesting. But the NFL is protecting the players to protect itself, right? It's not a good look for players to be hurt all the time. And people can hate this all they want, but it is reality. Betting matters. Fantasy football matters. That's why
you have this as the most popular sport in this country because so many people consume it in different ways. And the most dangerous thing to that is bad players, right? And so that's why, by the way, that's why these other football leagues don't work out, is because the disparity in talent at the top end is so high. So that football's doing it for player safety, but they're using player safety to protect themselves at the same time. So I get it. And again, like if the horse collar is removed because it's a dangerous play, by almost every account I've seen, this is the most dangerous play in football as far as rate of injury. Not the most dangerous injury, but the rate of injury is the highest with this play. So, yeah, it sucks for defenders. It does. It's going to make the good ones even better. I don't know. And the other thing on the refs was a problem. That was a problem last year for the league, the ref show, right? The fact that so many big moments were impacted. And I'm not blaming the officials so much on that, but I do think I have to cook in some technological advances, because eventually we will get to the point, I think, where every official has a bug in their ear, and after every play, it can be looked at like that. You've got the ability to add 1 or 2 officials to a booth somewhere. If you're the league and you want to solve this, add a couple officials who are watching every camera angle, who can quickly. This is what the replay, commentators on broadcasts are doing. If the broadcast network can do that, so can the NFL, even faster, right? They can come up with a streamlined process on the most egregious, right? The Saints losing in the playoffs, like the most absolutely egregious things could be quickly overturned. The most glaring one right now is roughing the passer, right? That's the one where we're like, okay, that's ridiculous. That could be overturned in 2 seconds. Pass interference has been subjective since the beginning of time. I don't know how you change that when you probably don't. I don't know that there's a way to fix it other than go into the college rule of saying it's only a 15-yard penalty. But even then, that's just going to cause more pass interference, right? So that may be unsolvable because it's just impossible to do. But roughing the passer, but targeting, helmet to helmet, all that stuff could be reviewed in like 3 seconds to know, nope, that's penalty. Yes, that's a penalty. Move on with our lives. It's ridiculous that we make coaches challenge that stuff. We don't need to go through that stupid process. Review every single play. Have people looking at every single play. And if it's the wrong call, quickly, wrong call. Pick up the flag. We go. Because nothing takes longer than a review. The thought of reviewing plays is nonsensical.
Well, maybe
like, why do we do that?
With that scenario, maybe you just take referees completely away and you just have somebody up in the booth.
Though.
No. Because you just have people up in the booth that are reviewing everything. You let a play out. And then before the next play starts, you got a quick review. I mean, I think it slows the game down, obviously. I think it takes
I don't think you can do it that way. But I mean, if that, you know what? Nobody would care if that happened.
If I'm calling an offense, if I'm an offensive coordinator, like here's a great example. I'm Andy Reid. You know who I'm going to dial up even more plays for now? Travis Kelce. If I've got a talented tight end, I'm absolutely going to do far more to give the ball to that tight end as often as possible, because it's almost impossible to tackle those guys now. I mean, what's the top way to tackle a tight end?
Fast
with the hip
guys.
Drop. With the hip drop.
See, you can still tackle somebody by the legs. You can't just come up from behind or the side, grab them, go for a ride, and spin them down. Like when I played middle school football and was outweighed 2-1 most of the time, that's the only way. But that was just me, like, basically getting in their way and then tackling them. But that's not a hip drop.
Here's where it's at. You can't hit them in the head. You can't hit them in the legs. You can't go at
You can hit them in the
legs.
legs.
You can't go at the knees. You can't do that. And now you can't pull them down by the hip. So if you're a defender, what are you supposed to do? Especially if you've got a big tight end that is more than likely going to drag you along with them. Like if you are a 5'11", 180-pound cornerback, and you are matched up against a tight end, which that's, obviously probably not the best way to do it. But let's just say that you end up trying to tackle that guy, you're going to get drug along with him because you can't now wrap him up and spin him around and pull him down, And so I think that because if you've got when a tight end, I also think of like an Isaiah Pacheco type running back, like those big guys that are going to drag defenders with them, it becomes almost impossible to legally bring them down. So I do think that if I'm calling an offense, man, like I'm just going to lean on that because I know that I've got the advantage, number one, just to have success in my offense. But number two, I know that the benefit of the doubt is going to be on my guy, and I'm probably going to get a call, and I'm going to be able to get, an automatic first down.
I'm going to give you the devil's advocate. Let me also clarify. Like, I don't think this is perfect. I'm just trying to bring perspective of I get it, right? I don't necessarily even like it, but I get it. And I think we're wasting our breath getting mad about this stuff. But let me be devil's advocate on what you just said. Do you think this rule change extends the career of both Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco, especially Isaiah Pacheco?
Sure. I mean, this is 100% to the benefit of offenses. It absolutely is. Because one way or the other, I mean, you're either
offensive players. Of course, it benefits the offense
because you're either,
but it benefits Pacheco. Pacheco's career is probably going to be longer because of this rule change.
But again, if I'm a defensive coordinator, if I'm a cornerback or a safety or even a linebacker, I hate this. I hate it.
Of course you do.
Because
you also hated the horse collar. You hate targeting. You hate all of it.
It handcuffs you even more. It handcuffs your defense even more.
It does.
So again, like from a player safety, injury prevention perspective, yes, I understand it. I get it. I know why. And we've seen Mark Andrews and Tyreek Hill and others that have been injured because of this particular tackle. I just think that it becomes like, that teams are going to be strategic enough offensively to find a way to make this work to their advantage.
Scoring was down last year, don't forget either, right? Like everyone acts like it's all offense, all the rule change. Scoring has been down, right? Because defenses have learned how to defend quarterbacks better. So I think sometimes we overreact just a little bit. I do think this obviously will benefit the offense greatly. I'm willing to see it play out. To me, the rule itself and the addition of the offense and that's not what I think is the potential downfall. I think the potential downfall is the officiating of it. That's what worries me the most, right? Is dealing with referees trying to sort this out. That's the part of the game we don't like. When I said, we don't want to see backup quarterbacks, we also don't want to see every other play stopped for penalty and looked at.
Right.
Like we don't want that either. So that process has to become very fast. And I think that's the other, I think it's almost like a counter to this is to letting officials get somebody in their ear to quickly correct some of these calls. I think if those two things happen in conjunction, we could have the best case scenario, right? Like if they can quickly officiate this somehow, then okay, like that will be better. But if they don't and it bogs the game down, that to me is the greatest danger.
It's going to bog the game down. I mean, make no mistake about it. It's going to bog the game down.
But to what degree, and is that solvable, right? Can we correct that if it is? And can they do enough this offseason, maybe as they're trying to learn it to get there? What I don't think we're really, I think it's being pretend bothered, though, if we're watching Isaiah Pacheco truck people in the fourth quarter because they can't hip drop tackle him. I don't think that's going to take anything away from our experience as NFL fans. And I think the NFL knows that. And so they're willing to do this because what they don't want, I mean, remember how many quarterbacks were hurt last year and star players. It was a bloodbath last year of injuries. That sucks. That does take away from our experience as NFL fans. It takes away if we're watching the games, we're betting the games, we're playing fantasy football. Like it takes away from everything when players get hurt. So the league trying to keep players from getting hurt and removing the most injury-prone play leave the game, to me, I totally get it. I understand it. And I just, there's nothing fans can do other than not watch, and that's not going to happen. We know that now. There could be long-term ramifications. I just hope, and maybe I'm an optimist, that the NFL can solve the time it takes to make some of these calls and the accuracy at which they're made through technology, that we can get there.
What do you think? 869-1240. I know people have thoughts. I'm guessing most people hate this, by the way, because that was certainly the indication I felt yesterday. Players, fans, everybody. I just get it, I guess. There's another rule change that came down on kickoffs. What do we think about this? Spoiler alert, Tommy, I kind of like it. I think it looks cool. And I didn't watch the XFL, but that's the example given. So during the break here, if you're sitting around your computer or whatever, just search kickoff on like Twitter and you'll see a video explaining what this will look like. And we'll talk about it next. It's Albracht and Castor. It's Sports Daily. On the way out, let's give away some HTO, a free iced tea, a free coffee to HTO, Wichita East, Weston, and Derby. To our first caller on the KFH hotline, 869-1240. Good luck there. We'll be right back. More Sports Daily right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Tommy sent me a note right before we went out. L'Jarius Sneed has signed one of the bigger cornerback deals of all time with the Titans. It doesn't surprise me. That's why the Chiefs did not keep him, because they, much like Tyreek Hill, like this was the Tyreek Hill situation all over again. They knew they weren't going to be able to devote that much money there when they decided they wanted to do Chris Jones. So they got something back for him, a third. We haven't talked about that, Tommy. I was surprised by that return. I thought it would be more than that. But when you consider the trading team must also sign him to that kind of a deal, that deflates the trade value. Would he have played this year on the tag? I get the indication the answer to that is no. And I saw some people kind of running the Chiefs yesterday, like, why wouldn't they just play him on the tag? The third's not enough. And my answer to that is, man, this guy said, pay me from day one. I'm not sure he would have just played on the tag. So when the Chiefs got that indication, I think they were just like, it's either get something or get nothing. They get a third, and it's a position they now have to address. But big picture, I still would have gone with Snead over Chris Jones. Don't get me wrong. But I think the Chiefs did okay in this scenario.
Yeah, and I don't think that, knowing what he got from the Titans, and if that was kind of the world in which he was feeling like he was valued, I get that, and I get the Titans wanting to pay him that kind of contract. Brett Veach wasn't going to do that. And even if the Chris Jones scenario wasn't on the table, like if that wasn't around, if that wasn't a thing, I still don't think Brett Veach would have gone to $76 million, 55 guaranteed, and a $20 million signing bonus for L'Jarius Sneed. So I'm not sure that those two things are super related. I don't know if it was a, hey, we're going to be able to sign Chris Jones, but we don't have the money left for L'Jarius Sneed. And if we didn't have the Chris Jones situation, we could pay Sneed what he wanted. I'm not sure that those two things are related that closely. I'm happy for Sneed. I'm happy that he was able to get his bag because I do think that regardless, that's over what Brett Veach would have been comfortable paying for a player like L'Jarius Sneed, also knowing the kind of depth that Kansas City has in the secondary.
Right. I don't mean to say, like, what I'm saying is I would have, if you, like, knowing the money, I'd rather just had Sneed, the younger player, who's one of the top corners in the league, than Jones, who I love to one of my favorite players ever. That money at his age, I don't know. It may have a bigger impact next year to have Chris Jones versus L'Jarius Sneed. I don't know that as we look back at both of those contracts in their durations, I think the Sneed contract will be better. But, the Chiefs chose that for next year. Again, I think trying to win a third had an impact on that.
Yeah.
I honestly do.
And I think that as far as playing on a tag is concerned, I don't have any stats to back this up, but it seems to me that we're now in a world where more often than not, players are not playing on a franchise tag. Like they don't want to do it. They would rather either be traded or they would rather be signed to an extension or they would rather hold out. I mean, I don't think that there are a ton of different scenarios where you've got players that are content to play on a franchise tag for a season. I feel, and again, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like
it's the stupidest thing for the players. I don't know how they ever got that in through the players.
Yeah. And I feel like even as recently as, 5-10 years ago, you were seeing more situations, at least it felt like you were, of players willing to play a year on the tag. And now we're seeing, and I don't blame them, players being like, no, I'm not going to play on that. Like either trade me and find a team that will pay me that, or you pay me that, or I'm going to hold out. But playing a year on the tag, that's not something I'm going to do.
Risk. Too much injury risk.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing the players ever agreed to. Totally agree. But that when you see that kind of money, you know why the Chiefs made the decision to trade it, because they weren't going to be able to do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it tells me 100% that L'Jarius Sneed said, guys, I'm not playing on a franchise tag.
Yes,
so you can either get some kind of return for me, or you can keep me on the roster and pay me, but I'm not playing.
When they openly and publicly said they were going to trade him, that told you he wasn't going to do that. So for some of the national people are like, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just tag him and try to run it back? I'm like, because he wasn't going to play, guys. Like, come on. Like, this is blatantly obvious. Anyway, that happened. That tells you why, Chiefs fans. Kickoff rule, Tommy. The other big one. I got to tell you, and again, you can go find like an easy video of what this will look at. I kind of love it. I don't just like it. I'm not just in favor in it. I kind of love it because I love the kickoff and I love big time special teams plays impacting games. The kickoff has become a non-factor at all. Now I kind of like it though. Like, this is cool. And I hadn't watched again a second of XFL football or wherever this came from. But I think we're going to see big returns on this. And it is a good way to not have the violent injuries on a kickoff when you start the blockers and the tacklers that close to each other. Whoever came up with this idea is pretty smart. I love it. I love everything about it, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, can you think about some of the top return specialists over the years that would have absolutely thrived with this? I mean, guys that did anyway, but think of the way that like Devin Hester or Dante Hall or even Tyreek Hill, how just even more success based off of if they had this kind of hybrid kickoff model when they played and they were return men. I kind of like it because, again, like this is something that, yes, it's in the name of player safety. I'm all on board with, limiting injuries on the kickoff because usually it's such an inconsequential part of the game. I know occasionally you'll have a return man break off for a touchdown run and all of that, a kickoff return. But more often than not, we're not talking about, I mean, how many times have we watched games where a kick has sailed through the end zone and it's a touchback, but you've got players that are running full speed at each other, and you've got one of the down men, who's injured and has to be carted off the field on a play that ended in a touchback that didn't matter at all. So if they can find ways to change that, I'm on board with it. And I do think that this does add excitement to the game. It makes the kickoffs more meaningful, and it does limit, you would think, the injuries. So I think when it comes to this part of it, yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, it's it'll add an exciting play. I mean, like everybody misses the kickoff, don't you? Like now teams aren't really punting much anymore. Like those are the best plays in football. Like they're the most exciting plays in football. And I don't know what the number, I mean, obviously the number is going to skyrocket because nobody returns kicks anymore. We're going to see. What I want to know is like, so I want to take the data of whatever the last year we had real kickoffs and returns and put it up against what we'll get next year and see where we get more big plays. That's what I'll want to do because I think that will be really interesting. What I don't know about these new kickoff rules is, does it produce more big plays? It'll obviously produce more returns, but does it produce more like game-wrecking returns? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. So I'll try to like paint the picture if you haven't been able to look at it. So essentially what you'll have is it'll be like a landing zone between the 20 and the 20-yard line and the goal line where the return man, I think, has to catch it. You'll have two zones within a 5-yard increment, like kind of like you do now, where the tacklers, other than the kicker himself, will line up, and then where the blockers will line up. So what I don't, here's the problem. Maybe you've seen this, Tommy. I have not seen this. What are kickers still allowed to just kick it through the end zone? A. B, how does this impact a potential onside kick? And so I gotta look more at that. I think it means no. Bart Scott got on and talked on ESPN, I think it was, about it's not, you can't surprise with an onside kick. So do you know that part of it? I got to learn that part of it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that I think have to be explained with all of this. I think generally speaking, it's I think it works out really well. But yeah, I don't. It looks like there will be touchbacks. There can yeah, so kickoffs that go into the end zone on the fly will come out to the 30-yard line rather than the 35-yard line. That's 5 yards more than the current touchback rule. That's per NFL Network. Onside kicks will still be allowed, but only in the fourth quarter and only for teams that are behind. They have to declare to the official that they want to attempt an onside kick. And then after that, current onside kickoff rules would apply.
So then they go back to the old way?
Well, yeah, and there's not clarification on where the onside kick would be attempted.
The ball's placed at, wow, if it doesn't reach the landing zone, by the way, like if they try and like a pooch kick, it would come out to the 40. So that's like a penalty. That's interesting.
The XFL allowed teams to attempt a 4th and 15 play from their own 25-yard line in lieu of an onside kick. So the NFL is adapting this part of the rule to better suit its game. So
Whoa. Wait, what?
So and this is from the Sporting News, sportingnews.com, the article about it. And it says the XFL allowed teams to attempt a 4th and 15 play from their own 25-yard line in lieu of an onside kick. So the NFL is adapting this part of the rule to better suit its game.
What happens if you pick up 16 yards?
I don't know.
And can you do that every time?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if I like that. I gotta look at that, because think about that. Like if you're down, let's say you're down 3 touchdowns now late. You may not be onside kick, but you would totally do that, I think, because you wouldn't care if you gave up the ball. And then does the offense take over where you failed? Right? Like, so let's say, okay, so let's create that scenario. So you start from your own 15, it's 4th and 15. You pick up the first down. Do you just get to keep your drive going? If that's the case, I don't think I like that. Or is it like a one-play scenario where then the other team has to kick off to you or something? Maybe, which obviously isn't going to be the case.
I think the other thing about this too is that it seems to me that this prioritizes accuracy from kickers. So it's not just pound the ball down the field and try to kick it out of the back of the end zone, which we see all the time. I mean, because there are different. It's kind of like Top Golf. Like if you land it, you're trying to hit the ball into different zones. If you land the ball in different zones, then the opposing team gets the ball at different locations, which is going to take a little bit of getting used to. Kickoffs that hit the landing zone and then go into the end zone have to be downed or returned. If they're down, then the receiving team only gets the ball at their own 20, as opposed to it coming out to the 30 or the 35, depending on other scenarios. So I mean, obviously it's going to take a lot of getting used to, but this is something that I do think it adds some more excitement to the way that special teams is played.
It does. Now I've got to figure out this onside kick thing though. I'm going to have to really, really, really research that. I can't imagine they're going to make that much of a wholesale change where they'll let teams choose to do that, because teams are going to do that all the time. And then you think about the implications of, okay, it's 4th and 15 from your 15 and you don't get it. Now, does the other team get the ball on the 15-yard line?
Yeah, I don't know. Really, the only thing I've seen that is like specific about the onside kicks is that they have to declare. They have to declare to the referee they're going to do it. It can only be in the fourth quarter, and it can only be about a team, like for a team that is losing in the game. That's what I'm wondering about.
All I'm seeing is that the surprise onside kick is dead. I think if we had that 4th and 15 situation, everybody'd be losing their mind.
And maybe so that article was worded poorly. And maybe that's something the XFL is doing, but not yet, integrated into the NFL. Regardless, though, I mean, we're talking about radical changes.
And by the way, people that are mad about the surprise onside kick, you know how many there were in the NFL last year? Surprise onside kicks across the league. Two all season. I think we'll be okay. Gary wants to talk about the onside kick. Gary, welcome into Sports Daily. How are you?
Hello. The way the rule was set up for the XFL or the USFL, whatever one they brought it from, was, you had the ball at the 15-yard line. It was 4th down and 15. You make the first down, you keep the ball, keep your drive going, basically. If you fail to get the 15 yards, wherever your play ended up, that's where the opposing team would then take over the ball.
And they can only do that in the 4th quarter. But have you heard, like, that part's not being introduced in the NFL, is it? Or is it?
That I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the onside kick.
I don't think it is. The onside kick thing is just people are just saying the onside kick, surprise onside kick is dead. Nobody does that anymore because of the already rule changes they made where everybody had to still line up the right way. Like it was almost impossible to surprise onside kick anymore anyway. So I think that's all it is. I think you'll just have to declare an onside kick if that's what you need to do. So as long as that's the case, I like the new kickoff rule. Gary, you like the new kickoff rule otherwise?
I'm basically have no feelings for it one way or the other yet.
Let it play out and we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. We appreciate the call, Gary.
So just to clarify, so I'm actually looking at the NFL's website and where they've got the proposal of the actual rule that was passed and what this is all going to look like. The only thing, according to the actual NFL operations website, the only thing that changes with onside kicks, 4th quarter only, the team trailing, and you have to declare it to the officials. Nothing else about any kind of 4th and 15. I think that the XFL took it a step further, but there's nothing in this that shows that the NFL is actually adopting that part of it. Maybe down the road they will, but as of right now, that's not part of it.
I'm seeing Pro Football Talk say that the NFL teams voted that part of it down.
Okay.
So they voted down the 4th and 20 onside kick alternative. Okay. So that part didn't come. The other part did. Back to, I like it. Let's bring the kickoff back. I like this rule. I think it will be fun. I think it will be cool.
It's one of the changes that I'm actually on board with. I feel like I know it's innovative and all of that. And it's not because the XFL did it first. But I like the fact that they're adopting something like this to make it more relevant, to make these special teams plays more important.
I'll tell you what else it does, Tommy, is it emphasizes the need for a sort of minor league like the XFL or whatever they're calling the new one, UFL, because like Major League Baseball, it allows you to tweak and tinker and see how things happen before. They could have tested this no hip drop rule there and just see how does that affect the game, right? Like that's the other part of this. Like if the XFL, that is a brilliant kickoff idea to me that the NFL would have never been able to come up with. How would they? They can't beta test it anywhere. So maybe this new football league, the NFL should get on board and try to back them a little bit. All right, we'll come back. Lots going on. Congratulations to Tommy, different Tommy, for winning our HTO giveaway. We will be back. We'll have more. Lots happening in the sports world. A lot of little things happening in the sports world. We'll continue to bounce around when we return on Sports Daily.
Age.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Tommy, I literally just saw this right as we were coming back on the air. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here, Jad Chambers producing for us. Colby Rogers just retweeted a guy named Tobias Bass that says Colby Rogers has heard from Alabama, Kansas, Arkansas, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Xavier, St. John's, Nevada, Memphis, USC. This is why Colby Rogers is in the portal.
Well, for sure.
I think I don't want to overreact to that as it pertains to Wichita State at the moment. Now in the macro, I do want to react to that. Big picture, we don't need that to happen with Wichita State players. In the micro, where things are right now in reality, if Colby Rogers is hearing from Alabama and Kansas and Arkansas, I mean, what are we going to do here, right? You can't. You understand it, and you don't hate college basketball because this is happening. You root for and hope Wichita State gets to the point where this doesn't happen to Wichita State players, right? And again, I would tell you this, like, it doesn't happen often to Memphis players. It didn't, even before the move to the Big 12, happen often to Houston players, right? There are other examples of teams that were in the same league as Wichita State that this doesn't happen to nearly as often. So I think more energy just needs to go to, hey, Wichita State needs to be in a position both in the NIL and a competitive space where it's not attractive to leave Wichita State. and B, don't just hate the transfer portal because Colby Rogers is going. I totally get it for him, right? I mean, it makes perfect sense. Why would he not?
I think that, looking at the list of those teams, I mean, there are a couple that would, I think, be really good fits for Colby Rogers. I think he'd do great at Alabama with the style that Nate Oates plays. I think that him teaming up with Eric Musselman would be pretty good for him because, we know that Eric Musselman, has done a pretty good job. I know they missed the tournament this year, but overall has done a pretty good job at Arkansas. I think playing for, I think it would always be appealing to go play for a guy like Penny Hardaway. I'm not sure Memphis is a great fit. I don't like that one. But can you imagine Colby Rogers with Kansas? Can you imagine his shooting prowess with a team in desperate need for shooters? I think that one is a really, really interesting fit, really intriguing. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but all of those programs have one thing in common. I'm sure he's going to be able to make quite a bit more money than what he can make at Wichita State, and that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, look, I don't know the money situation. I honestly don't know. I have no idea. Hopefully we can find out later this week when we have Paul Mills and Kevin Saul in. I mean, Kansas, Tommy, is the one, right? Kansas is the one that makes sense. That Kansas could have used Colby Rogers.
Sure.
It's exactly what they needed this year. If the roster looks sort of the same, Colby Rogers is a perfect fit at Kansas for what he does well. So we'll just, again, blaze forward.
And by the way, think about
urgency's there.
I know Arkansas was listed. Think about the former Shockers that played for Eric Musselman. Ricky Council IV played at Arkansas. Trey Wade played at Arkansas. Like, those things have happened before. So, I mean, that might be a reason why Musselman is into a guy like Colby Rogers.
Could be. We'll be back. We're going to wrap up Sports Daily right after this. I guess 29 of the 32 teams like the new kickoff rule. So that's probably a pretty good indication. All right, that's it for us. So you've got live Shocker baseball today, 5:45 taking on Oklahoma State. Should be a fun one. Nice little regional rivalry going on there. You can hear Shocker baseball broadcast for free on KFH and the Odyssey app. Tune in to KFH for that game tonight, or you can catch it on the Odyssey app. Jim Rome after us, Bob and Jeff, 2 to 4 locally. For Tommy and Jad, I'm Jacob. We'll see you tomorrow.